doctors or that are not married, and they're doing this incredible.
Well, there's a myriad of things. I think, first of all, we have to go back to writer. You are very well known for your teaching skills. Your students speak a whole lot about you.
Miss Nigeria competition.
I said, let's pick them up, let's take them back to Nigeria, and let's teach them a different kind of job.
Okay, it's nice having you join us on the program, The Woman. Now, I'd like to start by asking, who do you look up to? A lot of times we look up to strong women, very independent women, but do we ask ourselves, how do we get strong ourselves? It is very easy to give up once the challenges come, but that's one step you must not take if you want to be a strong woman. Talking about strong people, strong characters, strong women who have inspired, people in a lot of ways. I have one seated with me. She is not just a lawyer. She is not just a politician. She is not just a development consultant. She is also a human rights activist. She's a gender equity advocate. And at a point, she was an ambassador, Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia, and she's actually done a whole lot. We'll get to review all that, and of course, showcase my guests after now.
I don't think in gender boxes at all. I just get on with it.
A man that would dare to ask the wife, who do you think you are? That is a real man.
Yes. We need to have more women, more multitaskers around Nigeria to get Nigeria working.
Definitely.
If you just joined us, you're right on time because I'm about to unveil my guest of the day, a woman who has, in not just one way, touched lives. A woman who has actually, fought for people. If you recall, at a point, she actually took women on a certain march. He's for her, and I want to start from there. At a point, you organized that march, just to get the things for women, gender equity. Talk to us about it.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. It was last year, and it was about March. And on the 8th of March each year, we celebrate the International Women's Day. So in 2017, we were all moved by the motto, which was accessing the progress that we have made, judging the kind of progress women had made in terms of their commitment and the terms of their progression towards living a more equitable society, a society where inclusion, issues of participation, representation, and all of that. And we looked at ourselves and really felt that after Beijing, it seemed the tempo had died. It seemed we were not doing as well as we used to do, and something wasn't quite clicking for women in terms of the direction. So we came together around the time of the International Women's Day and held a press conference and actually spoke against the circumstances that we found the country in, and the fact that instead of progressing, we tended to feel that there was a regression. It wasn't made any better by the fact that in 2015 we saw a significant reduction in the numbers of women in the executive of the government, and not too much change in terms of the number of women in the National Assembly. And there was already that feeling that we were gradually losing the momentum and something needed to happen. So it was on the strength of that we came together and called ourselves Women for Women, because we said this is time women must stop talking about themselves as being the enemy, because there's this language all over the place, women are their own enemy and blah, blah, blah. So we said this is certainly very unacceptable. People disagree. Disagreement does not mean somebody's your enemy, but it means that people have to work together and surpass what seemed to be a barrier to women's engagement with the process. So that led us to talk, and it was amazing, Elizabeth, that the moment we started asking ourselves, it's time to raise our voice, it's time to ask for questions, it's time to go and make a presentation, it's time to run, people came out in their thousands, all voluntarily. We went also to the National Assembly, where a representative of the Speaker received us, and we gave them what we call the Charter of Demand from Women. These are the demands women are making, that only when these things are met, that we can begin to say that there's interest and commitment to what we call women's equality as well as women's empowerment.
Women, in a way, always support themselves. Now, to my viewer, now you know my guests. Deliberately, I withheld her person, but then she's already unveiled herself. And with that, I say welcome to the studio, Honorable Esu Nkoyo Toyo. And I know that in 2011, you took the bull by the horn, representing the municipal or Dukbani Federal Constituency of Cross River State. And you did well. You did well. And a lot of times, actually, at a point, I heard your name being mentioned for Deputy Governor, 2019. I said, okay, I'll be one of the first to come flying the flag. But then back to the March of last year, you said something that got me thinking. It was to project women more and get us more involved. But incidentally, even after 2019, our ratios seem to be, getting down.
It's not saying it has fallen significantly. Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, when we started last year, March 2018, I believe we started a little bit too late because the party interest had already been galvanized. Until now, I don't think the question of diversity, the understanding and an appreciation of the strength and values that diversity brings to a system has been appreciated. And one of the elements of diversity is the inclusion of women, inclusion of younger people, inclusion of persons with disability, all those inclusions that mean that society has given recognition of the nature of governance and its strength in pulling people together. Sadly, we haven't done that. We have a federal character system which is even often abused. That federal character system has not become engendered in terms of its character, because I think if you say people should come from different parts, we should also say people should come from different sexes and different ages.
In spite of not having that much of respect or value for gender, so to speak, in Nigeria, you haven't given up. I recall before you went in 2011, it wasn't your first attempt.
I ran 4 elections before I won on the last one. I won the 3rd one and I lost the 4th one.
I'm not sure if I lose for the first time I want to go back.
Well, it takes a language, you can't.
So what's that language? Who's speaking to you? What's that,
First of all, we want to inspire. I have worked on this issue of women's inclusion for the better part of my life. I started in 1994, or was it? No, 1993, when the United Nations Women Unit was set up in Nigeria called UNIFEM. At the time, we had an amazing feminist in charge. Her name was Professor Felicia Ikejuba. Professor Ikejuba came into Nigeria with a passion for women's increase and inclusion in power and all sorts of things. And she was so committed to it. She ran around, found a lot of us, and we were very young at the time, but very, very idealistic in terms of our value. So she found a seed in which she could plant. She found the ground in which she could plant her seeds. The idea of women can do it. Women can get up, women can rise, women have a space, we have a contribution to make, and it's an important contribution. And we got so fired up. But don't forget, this was also the season of the international world conferences. We had the first World Conference on Women, the second World Conference on Women, the third World Conference on Women. As a matter of fact, it was the third World Conference that held in Nairobi that fired up Mrs. Babangida to come home and start better life for women. She too galvanized women from the grassroots, brought that awareness. She came back from Nairobi very fired up and started that. By the time we're going to the 4th Conference on Women, which was now 20 years or 25 years since then, which was in Beijing, if you remember, we came back all with the language. So, Elizabeth, in a sense, we all got into that movement. We all became fired up. We all became products of an internationalized global world where we were told to think global and act local. And when we started acting local and looking for the national spaces, we didn't have an excuse on why to fail. You couldn't go back to women and say, this thing I've been preaching to you is possible, you can do it. I tried and I failed. So it was that kind of energy that I took into politics. Yes, it fueled me quite a bit.
Because if you didn't make it, it would have been such a waste.
It would have been so difficult also to come back and say, this is how it works.
Yes, okay. At the point you founded the Gender and Development Action for Nigeria, and with that NGO, you were able to push around a lot of things. I know that widowhood practices was one of them.
Yeah.
But I want to know, do you think that we've been able to achieve a milestone, landmark for women, especially when it comes to widowhood practice? I know some places this is still going on big time.
Let me say that, let me take you back a bit. Don't forget there were groups like FIDA, and I was part of them, being a lawyer myself as well. So this work around widowhood practices has been on for a long time. But what is the real story? What is the real story? The real story, Elizabeth, I would say, is that we're not looking at the demographics. We're not looking at the numbers. If you look at Nigeria of today, even you seated here, will ask yourself, do I know the young people around anymore? But we are in a climate where people have decided that it doesn't matter, the dignity of the woman doesn't matter. I mean the dignity of the person and the body, not what the person has done. You must first of all live in a society which says a woman is a human being. He's got certain human rights, certain basic rights. And when you get past those basic rights, you then say, what has she done wrong? And what can we do about what she has done wrong? We live in a society where the enforcement of the law is poor and weak, where impunity is the order of the day. Then those who could have said no to those practices return back and say, oh, I can do it as well. If you can debase a woman and throw her out and keep her in the open and show her bodies and show her parts and everything and make it look immaterial, what stops the person who says, oh, widowhood practices, oh, it's my culture, I can do it? Because there is no enforcement.
People have actually argued that those punishments that are meted out to women, after the widowed, it's done by women themselves. I guess that's where this PhD syndrome, stemmed from. I don't know. Is there no adequate information, education to these women?
I must tell you that many of those practices that used to be actually drawn by women, which was largely sit in a place, put off your hair or cut your hair, or you can't go out, you can't participate, you can't do this, you can't do that. Those ones are not the main problems that women complain about. The main problems that women complain about in the widowhood thing is the following stuff. They take away the property. Definitely. Access to the children are denied. Most of those things are done in the patriarchal state. The women are agents of the patriarchal system. The society is in need of redefinition. And the sad thing about all of this is that women's voices have not been heard. And yet the answer lies with women. Because when families are being abused and undermined, at the point when even the woman you call wife is being challenged as to what the definition of wife is. Today you are a wife from morning till night. You are sitting beside the road selling akara and everything. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a wife?
Right, it's a question I'll leave the members of the audience to articulate and try to answer for themselves, because I'm sure to a lot of people the wife title will come with different things. But one thing I want us to take away from today is that if you are abused, be it the girl child or a widow, there is always a law backing you. Ensure you embrace it. Broaden your horizon. Seek for information, and that way your life becomes easier. But my guest today is not just a lawyer and a politician, an ambassador, and a whole lot of other things. She also has her own family. But I'm wondering, with all that you do, how do you manage, to form a correlation between your work as a politician, your work as a family person, and your work as a humanitarian person? Because I know you do a whole lot.
Well, those are the choices you have to make. When I was a young woman, I worked.
You're not old yet.
When I was a very young woman, in my 20s. Yeah, in my 20s. I worked as a lawyer, and I worked with a bank. And I must tell you that when I left Calabar to Lagos. I relocated to Lagos because that was when the first austerity measures hit Nigeria. So all of us started looking for new places where we could go and re-energize our families and so on. I moved to Lagos. That's how I got actively into NGO work. It was a tall order, but at the same time, I could define the time I went. Because the reason I went for this, instead of looking for a job, at the time, it wasn't like it is now in Nigeria. You don't have jobs. There were many jobs. But in Lagos, it meant that I would be leaving the house 5, 6 a.m. every day to go to the job and probably come back. And I had young children. My children were under 10 years old at the time. So what I would say to many young women is that family is important. So you have to find a balance and make sure and remember that you can never come back, even when you make the money, you can never come back to provide the children with the kind of resources they need. So that was my good fortune. The second thing that helped me also was that I was keen to be educated further than what I was. So I wanted to go back to school. So I had to bargain with the kids on how to do that. So I took one or two of them with me when I was going to the UK to study again. So in the sense, even in terms of everything I did, I always made sure, I used to come to meetings, come with my son, come with my daughter to meetings. So they were very much exposed to the kind of work I was doing. So it wasn't work which was far from them. Unfortunately, many of the people today go to work and their children have no connection with work.
Actually helps the children as they grow, because they get to learn more than just
absolutely. Even when I came for conferences, I'll come at least with one of them. That's what I used to do. So in a way, they were part of my life, and I was part of their life. So I would say to a lot of mothers that the choice of job, I mean, husbands may say work or don't work. I think in the end, the choice of what we do lies with us women, because we may not work and still not be interested in the children. You may work and be more interested, and you may not work and be less interested. So it's a function of who you are and what you want to achieve with your life.
I'm tempted to ask you if you're going to run again anytime soon, but let me leave that and get to find out. You will run again anytime. That's
anytime soon.
That's good. Okay.
Yes. I'm not yet out of the business of running.
All right, that's good. And for a long time, we still look forward to having you again.
Yes.
I recall when you were in the house, I used to enjoy most of those Calabar things you wore, and I was hoping to see a bit more of it.
Well, I still do wear those things a lot, but as a politician, you want to also make a statement about what you represent. The Onyo, which I wore, is the pride of the Efik woman. I came there as a representative of the Efik people. The two local governments I represent, Calabar and Odupani Federal Constituency, are predominantly Efik and Kor-speaking people. And being an ethnic minority, I thought I should wear that identity wherever I go. It wasn't an easy dress to wear because of the heavy flowing gowns, but I think more or less I made it look like it was easy, and I wore it in different forms.
And caught up with it. I'm
happy you did.
I made some.
Yes, it's going.
Calabar, now you talk about it. It's one place I always go to when I'm looking for serenity. And it's been like that for a very long time.
Yes.
What is the secret? Now we are speaking. You represented that community for a while. What is it about Calabar that has refused to be disrupted?
It's a very old town. It's got its own civilization. Maybe the civilization is a big word. It's got its own histories.
Most of the first capital.
Yes. Most families of Efik origin, or of the origins around Calabar, would have had like 4 or 5 generations of educated people. So already they were very westernized in a certain way. There would be maybe like the Creoles in Sierra Leone and so on. There would be people who had also a very mixed baggage in terms of where they come from. In Calabar, we had people of Ghana, Sierra Leone, different origins within our families. So you will see a family of someone who has a Ghanaian name. How did it happen? Oh, my grandmother was a Ghanaian. My this was this. My father was this. You've heard about the recent appointment by Mr. President of Mr. John to become his advisor on petroleum. That is one of the families that came into Calabar and became a Calabar family. So these are families that actually evolved and helped our evolution to become a community that was already very conscious of the quality of its own people. Going back to being natives was a little bit difficult for us. And that whole thing tends to dampen our aggressiveness. And that's why people come to Calabar and say, oh, you are so calm, you're so quiet, and that, and all sorts of things. It's over time. People have learned to acculturize in a certain way.
I notice each time I come in, I never really get to see women. I don't like Tyra. I never get to see women.
Because we are always young. We never grow old.
Yeah,
and the most iconic of us is Florence Itagiwa. She never grows old.
Yeah, Florence, yes, she doesn't. Yeah, that's good. So what do you relax with? I mean, you said you're not out of the business yet, and I see you, in spite of a long trip. Today I called you up and the time that you were here, with all the energy. How do you relax? How do you rejuvenate?
That's a good question. I think progressively we're getting older. Now we're beginning to think of what can we give back to society, what can we enable society to do. It's in terms of just the way we interact with a future generation is something that makes us real. But I am very keen to go into writing stories for young people, and this keenness to do that came out of the long journey towards political engagement. The languages that come out of it is amazing. So one of the languages that came out, he said, that is to say that you will see your mother, in politics, you will see your mother as a girl. Elizabeth, it's not for us to have that conversation. You can write a book on that story.
So
see your mother
becomes
because things will happen within the politics that you will be wondering, what happened? Then you look at it, suddenly a girl imagines, I am your mother, inside politics. So that's the whole story that came out. When they gave me that expression, I was like, I have never heard anything as incredible as this. But I wondered, so I met so many of these types of scenarios that happened in politics, enough to write stories about. And I've been contemplating. It has to be storytelling, not about real life issues.
Yes, I know.
The whole moral around
whatever it is. It looks. The lady you've actually shared. Yes. It looks.
You cannot believe the number of things you hear in politics. It just gives.
A few times I hang around them,
the local politicians, so not the big ones, just the very local ones.
I get lost sometimes with what they're talking about, and there are some expressions in the languages that I need to do a rethink before I get to you.
Exactly.
Well, it's good. Everyone has his own slogan. It's really wonderful having this lovely chat with you.
Thank you so much.
Learn every day.
Yes.
We learn every day. But just before I leave, I'd like to know, if you were to go back in time, what would you like to change, briefly?
What would I like to change? I think I would have loved to do more with men than I have done. I've done far too much with women. I think we haven't created enough he for she's, people who understand why we are doing what we are doing from the side of men. I think certain assumptions I made that if we have the laws in place, if we drive our advocacy hard, we will be able to change values in society. I think that's why I feel I have failed. And maybe if I paid more attention to that, the quality of work which I do would not have been where it is. It doesn't surprise us at all that this year's election we've seen fewer women than we had in the past. So it obviously means that whatever we've been doing, our language has gotten out. People have heard it. It's strong. It's compelling, but it hasn't quite changed power relations. And I'm thinking that we needed to do more around the issues of power relations. And maybe one of the things I would do if I had the time to go back is how do we change the way men perceive power in relation to women and other constituencies.
So well said. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And there's no need really adding more. I'll just say that she thinks she can go back, or she cannot go back in time to get this done. But I'm telling you now, on behalf of all who is watching, that it's not late. Just like you said, you still have a lot of time.
I hope many more women will do that. Many more women will do that.
Go back and touch that little thing in the head of the men and help them to understand the women, because I know that if they understand us, they'll be in better position to accommodate us and help us, just like the Creator made us. Help us to help them to make the country better. And on that lovely note, I say bye-bye for now on the program, The Woman. I remain Elizabeth Amai. I'll see you again with another exciting personality next week. Be good.